All right, let's dive into the core ideas of a really fascinating book, The God Part of the Brain by Matthew Alper. Now, to be clear, this isn't a book about atheism, not at all. Think of it more like a scientific detective story, an investigation into the actual mechanics of faith that are humming away inside each of our minds. You know that feeling, right? That profound sense of connection, maybe watching an incredible sunset or just a moment of quiet reflection where you feel a sense of presence. It's this universal human experience, something many people would call divine.
But what if that feeling isn't coming from out there at all? Matthew Alper's book asks a pretty radical question. What is physically happening inside our brains during those moments? Are we tuning into a message from the cosmos, or are we actually creating the message ourselves?
Well, science shows us this is not just some vague, abstract feeling. It has a physical, measurable basis. During deep prayer or meditation, specific parts of the brain literally light up. It's an electrical and chemical reality firing away inside your skull, just as real as the chemical reaction we call love. So Alper introduces this really cool idea of a spiritual brain. He suggests that our ability to have these experiences isn't just some random accident. It's a fundamental part of our biology. Almost like we have an antenna that's designed to pick up on spiritual signals. And this book is really an attempt to map out the wiring of that antenna. So, okay, if we have this biological antenna, why? Why would evolution have ever selected for it? The answer, according to Alper, starts with two things that make us completely, uniquely human. Unlike any other animal on the planet, we are consciously aware that one day we will die. We know our time here is limited. And that awareness, it creates this deep, fundamental anxiety, a problem our brain is incredibly motivated to solve. So how does our brain solve that problem? By telling stories. Our brain is a pattern-seeking machine. It absolutely hates randomness. So when something random happens, our brain's first instinct is to find a cause, create a narrative around it, and in doing so, give us a feeling of control in a really unpredictable world.
So when you're faced with the ultimate randomness, this vast, silent, and often chaotic universe, what does our brain do? It creates the ultimate story, the master narrative, the idea that there's a conscious force in control, that everything happens for a reason, that it's all part of some grand plan.
So if our brain is wired for belief, what does that wiring actually look like? Which parts of the brain are working together to generate these incredibly powerful feelings? Alper basically takes us on a tour of what you could call the God circuit. First up is the limbic system, your emotional core. This is that ancient primal part of your brain that just generates raw feeling, fear, love, awe. So when someone says, I felt the presence of God, from a neurological point of view, they're describing a massive activation of their limbic system. Next, you've got the temporal lobes, which Alper calls our mystical brain. This is the area linked to those more transcendent experiences, out-of-body sensations, feelings of cosmic unity, that sense that your individual self is kind of dissolving into something much, much larger. And this is where it gets really wild. Scientists developed something called the God helmet. It's a device that uses magnetic fields to gently stimulate the temporal lobes. And what they found was they could artificially induce these mystical states. People would report feeling a presence in the room or a sense of total oneness with the universe. It just raises these incredible questions about where these experiences truly come from. Okay, so we've got the hardware for belief. But how does that hardware get programmed? This is where belief stops being just a feeling and becomes a powerful physical force that can actually reprogram our biology. I mean, think about rituals. Praying at a certain time, lighting a candle, kneeling. From a brain science perspective, rituals are a powerful form of, brain programming. By repeating a physical action and tying it to a deep emotion, you are literally carving and strengthening neural pathways, making that God circuit stronger and more automatic every single time. And check this out. This is a perfect illustration of just how powerful that programming can be. In a famous placebo effect study, one group of patients got real knee surgery, while another group got a sham surgery. They were just put under and given a small incision. And as you can see, both groups reported almost identical levels of pain relief. Their belief that they were being healed was enough to create real physical results. This shows us that just believing in the healing was enough to trigger the brain to release its own natural painkillers. The mind literally turned a belief into a biochemical reality. Your brain is, in essence, the world's most powerful pharmacy, and belief is the prescription.
So this all leads us to the biggest, most challenging question in the whole book. If we can explain the mechanics of a spiritual experience inside the brain, what does that mean for the reality of God? And here, Alper makes a really crucial distinction. He argues that science can explain where the experience of the divine comes from. It can map the wiring, it can track the chemistry of our spiritual brain. But what it can't do is prove or disprove the ultimate reality that might be behind that experience. He uses this powerful analogy. We know that the feeling of falling in love is a flood of chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine in our brains, right? But does knowing the science behind it make the actual experience of love any less profound or beautiful or real? Of course not. And in the same way, understanding the neurology of a spiritual experience doesn't erase its personal value one bit. So where does all this leave us? Well, Alper doesn't see this knowledge as the end of spirituality. Actually, he suggests it could be the beginning of a new, more enlightened era for us. The book suggests that our biological need for meaning and connection, that's not going anywhere. But the source of that meaning can evolve. We might be moving toward a new kind of spirituality, one based less on ancient texts and more on a scientific understanding of our own minds. The goal isn't to get rid of this part of our brain. It's to become active programmers of our own minds. It's about understanding this powerful hardware we all have and consciously choosing to channel its energy toward things like compassion and unity instead of division and conflict. Ultimately, the book leaves us with this profound responsibility. If our tendency to believe is a program running in our minds, then we are the ones who have to choose how to write the code. Understanding the God part of the brain doesn't diminish spirituality. If anything, it empowers us. It puts the responsibility for what we do with that incredible capacity for belief squarely in our own hands.